Welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So this is part 2, I guess you could say, because I posted a book haul. Here's some Unhaul books. So there's a combination of books on here. There's books that I've read that I just don't want anymore, that I don't foresee rereading, that I just don't see a reason for having on my shelf. And then there's some DNFs that end up in here. There is some books that I just haven't read and I just don't see myself getting to. So I'm going to do them in no particular order because they're they just kind of ended up in a pile. Let's just say that. The first two I do know are at least DNFs, and that is Beartown by Frederick Bachman. His writing style is just not for me. I know I said that I was going to give it another 20-ish pages, give it to page 100. I just can't do that, guys. I have stared at it and I'm like, oh, I should go back. Not really. It hasn't really crossed my mind now's the time to go back. So I don't think I'm going to. I just think Frederick Bachman is unfortunately not the author for me. This is book 2 that I've tried to read of his, and it doesn't click, unfortunately. So it's going to go to my local library. The next book that just didn't click with me, unfortunately, was I See You by Claire McIntosh. I really liked I Let You Go, but for some reason this one's I don't think I'm loving the premise. I just don't care what's happening to these women, unfortunately, so I might try some more books of hers in the future, but I'm going to definitely be careful and make sure that I read the synopsis first and not just buy it because it's her. So this will be going. This book is just more for the annoyance of the size and things like that, and that is Landline by Rainbow Rowell. This is the only Rainbow Rowell book that I have liked. I did not like her story in My True Love Gave to Me. I did not like Fangirl. I did not like Eleanor Park. And I liked this one. I feel like I remember giving this one 4 stars, but because the size of this, it just makes it really hard to put things next to it. And I'm not going to go back and reread it, so it's going to unfortunately get passed on. It's also an ARC, but it's not an ARC that I received. I just happened to buy this at a used store one day, and I'm not going to go back to it, so it's going to go to the library. I've got 2, I guess you could say anthologies from years past that I just know I'm not going to go back to. I've got Sinful by Lori Foster. I bought this at Borders. That's how old this is. I got it a very long time ago. I've read it. I don't remember what I thought about it. I don't foresee going back to it. That's for sure. I'm not a big fan of anthologies to begin with, so that does not matter. And then Bodyguards in Bed, which now that I read it recently, I also got it at Borders. I know I've read it within the years of my channel. That one I know I read before my channel. This one I read during it. And I just remember it was okay. And I don't have a need for it. So it's going to go. This one is interesting because I was debating keeping on with the series, but I feel like there's just so many other series that I want to get to that I really don't want to continue a series just for the sake of continuing it. And that is Fraternized by Rachel Van Dyken. It's about a cheerleader who is plus size, so she's already got things going against her, and she ends up kind of in a love triangle, and this guy that she likes, and he's super cocky, and it was okay while I read it, but there's no point in me continuing the series. It's a companion series. The next one follows a guy that I would be kind of interested in seeing his romance, because I did like him, but I'm not interested, so it's going to go. And it's funny because I actually saw this while I was at the library today, and I was like, oh, did I already get rid of that? And then I realized, no, you didn't get rid of that. So, it crossed my mind that I had already gotten rid of it, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Some books that I haven't read. We've got Fashion Victim by Amina Akhtar. This is a Book of the Month book, and I have seen really bad reviews for it. I just read the first few pages of it, and it's not gonna be for me. It's just not my cup of tea. This book I've been wanting to read, but I think I'm in my head. I've heard awful things, and that is Artemis by Andy Weir. I liked The Martian, and then but I didn't love all the science aspects to it, but then I've heard this one is way worse than The Martian, and I already gave The Martian 3 or 4 stars, so I'm if I'm going to like this even less, there's no point. And I did remember when I first got it, I did read the first chapter, and I've never picked it back up since. So that must be a telling thing, because I got it in November of 2017, and I started it that day and just never continued. So over 2 years later, time to go. This one I did read, and that is The Postcard Killers by James Patterson and Liza Markland, and I did really enjoy this when I did read it. I got this a long time ago. I read it way before BookTube, and it's like this person is on the case where this person ends up leaving like postcards behind after they murder people, and I'm just not a huge James Patterson fan. Like, the more like I hear about him and like the ghostwriting ideas, and like I don't know. I just like don't. Whenever I like see his books, I always like just like walk right past them. So like I don't plan on rereading this. So it was good when I read it. Just I'm not gonna go back to reread it, especially it's huge and not gonna waste my time there. I tried these books in my try a chapter tag, and I thought I was gonna actually possibly read them. And then the more I thought about it, I haven't even thought to reach for them again since I made that video. So time for them to go. And that is the duology, the evaporation of Sophie Snow, and then the reconciliation of Shiloh Snow. I have had no thoughts about picking them up since that video. So they're taking up space. I don't need them. Especially my YA brain has not always been on lately. So I don't see myself gravitating to reading them in the future. Another DNF was The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. I just said by Emily X.R. Pan. This is another Book of the Month book. I got 124 pages in, and I just didn't care. The storyline was a little weird, and I didn't get the hype that everybody else got. Some that I've already read. These kind of all go together. We've got Beautiful Disaster by Jamie McGuire and Walking Disaster by Jamie McGuire. I remember really liking Beautiful Disaster. I gave it 4 stars. Now looking back at it, I know how problematic it was, but I still enjoyed it. But then when I picked up Walking Disaster, I hated this book. And I always was like, well, I'll keep this and DNF this. And I'm like, that's silly. Like, I'm going to keep the whole duology. But now I'm like, this is silly. They both need to go. And then with that, obviously goes The Wedding, which I did enjoy reading The Wedding. It's like the companion novella that goes with this series. And I did try reading the spin-off series, and I picked up Beautiful Oblivion by Jamie McGuire, and I read this one, and I kept saying, like, I'm going to go back and finish this series. I'm going to go back and finish the series. I must have read this, let's see. Oh, I can't even tell you when I read this, like, years ago, and I still never picked up the rest of the series. So if I were, I couldn't even tell you about the Maxon brothers anymore. Are they the Maxon brothers? Is that their names? Maddox brother. I couldn't even tell you about them now. So, like, why would I keep this? It's going. They're all going. Another, now I'm looking back at it, wouldn't read it anyways, is Easy by Tamara Weber. I remember really enjoying this. I really disliked the sequel that came out. I believe like 2 more books have come out since then. I've unhauled the sequel. So this one's going to go too, because I never continued on after not liking the second one. I never continued on, so I'm going to keep the first one. Another trilogy that I feel like I save because I remember like trying to get the matching covers and making sure they'd be pretty, and I would never reread this series. I feel like I keep this series on my shelf to make myself look smart, which doesn't make any sense. But this is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy. I love these covers. They're stunning. They're really great additions. They're floppy. They're amazing. But I don't know. I remember having such a hard time getting through some of these. And I saw today when I was at the library the 4th book, which isn't written by him, but it's inspired by the rest of the series. And I was like, oh, maybe I should pick that up. I'm like, you didn't actually really like those. Like, that's not a thing. So these are going to go back to the library where they came from. 2 more books from that try chapter tag that I was like, oh, I'm going to read these. And then it hasn't crossed my mind to read them again. I had no interest in picking them up. That's The Seafront Tea Room by Vanessa Green. I haven't had an urge. Nothing about it has been screaming, read me. I have a bunch of books on my shelf that I would much prefer to read. And same thing with Indivisible by Travis Thrasher. I was already hesitant about this in the first place. The try chapter kind of made me want to read it, but then I have had no thought about picking it up since, so it's going to go. The rest are books that I just did not care for. This is Little Pretty Things by Lori Raider Day. I just recently reviewed this. I thought it was okay. Nothing special. Nothing great. It's a thriller. It's gonna go. The Perfect Mother by Amy Malloy. Another thriller. Didn't really care for it. It was okay. Nothing seriously wrong with it. There was a little bit of mom shaming in it, which I didn't appreciate. But again, nothing that I need to keep on my shelf. The If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I got this from Book Outlet. I was really excited for it because I heard a lot of great things, but it was very Shakespeare heavy, which obviously I knew that going into it, that it was inspired by Shakespeare, but it just didn't do it for me. The thriller aspect, the mystery aspect just didn't fulfill what I wanted. So unfortunately, this is going to go away. A Christmas novel that I thought I had already unhauled, but I guess I kept it, is Mutts and Mistletoe by Natalie Cox. Cute romance, just didn't live up to the hype of what I wanted it to be. And then we got Idaho by Emily Ruskovich. It was a book that I read. I had a really hard time even explaining what it was about. After I read the whole thing, I found it really boring. I just didn't care for it. And then the last book that I'm going to unhaul is Nice Try, Jane Sinner by Leanne Oak. I'm not positive. This is a YA book that I was really looking forward to. It's written with some dialogue like that, and any event, any action took place in paragraphs. Any speaking took place as dialogue. Reality TV show. I thought that would be fun to read, and unfortunately it was okay. Just didn't do it for me. So those are all the books that I'm going to be unhauling. I know in the past I have offered if people wanted to buy them for $5, then I would mail it out to you and you would just PayPal me the money if that's what you want to do. You can offer. I'm going to hold on to them for probably the next 2 weeks because I feel like whenever I don't offer it is when people suddenly are like, oh, can I buy that from you? And I'm like, sorry, I already got rid of them. So I'll hold on to them for 2 weeks. If you want to reach out to me, you can. Don't feel like you have to. If not, they're just going to go to my local library and get donated, so it's not a skin off my back. But then the $5 is really just to pay for shipping. That's where it comes down to. But these are the books I'm unhauling, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, everybody.